Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
And I'm Pauline Verzosa.
The big stories tonight. Digong's defense team gives temporary release another shot as their client's court date in The Hague draws closer. Former President Rodrigo Duterte's lawyers reiterate he is no longer capable of committing further crimes and is not a flight risk.
And while in the Netherlands attending to her father, Vice President Sara Duterte gets engaged again in a verbal tussle with the palace press officer. The VP denies incompetence when she was Education Secretary and turns the tables on President Bongbong Marcos.
And is he reclaiming the post he once held in government? Former DPWH Secretary Rogelio Singson admits receiving offers, but will he accept? We ask Secretary Babes later as he joins us in a little while.
Nagre-reflect lamang na bilang siya ay naging DepEd Secretary ay a complete failure.
Hindi ako ang failure. Ang failure is yung 10:30 pa lang ng umaga, amoy alak ka na.
We begin with Vice President Sara Duterte lashing back at Malacanang spokesperson who found her performance as Education Secretary wanting. This fresh word war started when Palace Press Officer Claire Castro reacted to Duterte's statement that the Philippine educational system is lagging behind its international counterparts. Here's what Undersecretary Castro said.
Sa kanyang reklamo ngayon, nagre-reflect lamang na bilang siya ay naging DepEd Secretary ay a complete failure.
Now here comes VP Sara in an interview on the Facebook page Alvin and Tourism. The Vice President asked how can she be a failure when President Marcos himself tried to stop her from bowing out of DepEd.
Hindi ko maintindihan saan nanggagaling yung total failure ako as a Department of Education Secretary. Kasi iba yung actions ni BBM noong ako ay nag-tender ng resignation. Inofera niya ako, may gusto ka ba na posisyon? Sabi ko, wala akong gustong posisyon. Tapos ang sunod niyang sinabi sa akin, pwede ka bang tumulong sa midterm elections para sa mga senators? Hindi iyon actions ng taong tumitingin as failure ako. Action yon ng taong tumitingin na kailangan niya yung trabaho ko.
Duterte also shared more encounters with the chief executive, one of which happened on June 19, 2024. This incident, according to the VP, was what sealed her decision to step down from the Marcos cabinet.
Pag-alis ko, nagbeso-beso siya sa akin. This was 10:25 or 10:30 in the morning. Amoy alak siya. At kung ako ang pahulain, kung ano yung alak na yon, whiskey. Doon na-confirm yung decision ko na mag-resign. So, hindi ako ang failure. Siguro, ang failure is yung 10:30 pa lang ng umaga, amoy alak ka na.
Meantime, the palace press officer did not directly address Duterte's allegation but did take a seeming swipe at the Vice President's ICC-detained father. To quote Castro, ang Pangulong Marcos Jr. ay hindi tulad ng iba na tanghali ng gumising kaya laging napupuyat ang mga taga-media para lang mag-cover. Hindi siya tulad ng iba na 4:53 p.m. darating sa venue para sa SONA kahit na 4 p.m. dapat ang SONA.
On to another Duterte. Just over a month before his scheduled confirmation hearing on September 23, former President Rodrigo Duterte has renewed his bid for interim release through his lawyers. The petition, dated August 19, was filed before the pretrial Chamber 1 of the International Criminal Court. Duterte's defense team, led by Nicholas Kaufman, again argued that the three grounds normally used to justify detention under the Rome Statute does not apply in his case. They maintained in the motion that Duterte is not a flight risk, cannot interfere with witnesses and is unlikely to commit further crimes if released. The defense also stated in the heavily redacted motion that a cooperating state has offered to host Duterte under strict safeguards. These include the use of monitoring mechanisms to ensure he complies with the terms of his release. The defense further argued that if Duterte's detention is prolonged, it would be, quote, unfair and unreasonable, considering potential procedural delays in his trial. The petition therefore asks the court for his immediate release. Duterte has been detained at the ICC facility in The Hague since March as he faces charges of crimes against humanity for thousands of killings linked to his administration's war on drugs.
And in other news, News 5 tracked down one of the alleged ghost flood control projects Senator Ping Lacson featured in his presentation yesterday. And what did the team find? Well, nothing indeed. The project is yet another dike in Barangay Apitong, just beside Panggalaan River in the town of Nahuan. But the news team was greeted by a vast space of sand and rocks, basically nothing. And with residents and even barangay officials questioning if there was indeed such a project.
Ito po ang Sitio Dike. Yan po, kahit isa pong project na mega dike, wala po kayong makikita. Ay ako po, 50 years na dito na nakatira. Ay wala po, ito po ang Sitio Dike. Wala po kayong makita for year yata po ng 2024.
The contract for the project listed on the Sumbong sa Pangulo website was as completed since 2024 was worth almost 193 million pesos. Residents said they actually requested the dike because water from the Panggalaan River rises up to 10 feet during the rainy season. Just last month, roads in Barangay Apitong almost disappeared and rice fields got swallowed by floodwaters when habagat struck.
Pagka nabaha po sir, laging naabot yung bukid ko. Malaki na po nakukuha.
Meron po pong proyekto ang barangay namin, subalit hindi na isagawa. Na kailangan, kaya sobrang nakakalungkot po at nakakagalit dahil pati barangay namin ay nagamit sa ganitong mga pangyayari.
According to the provincial government, per the 2024 General Appropriations Act, the same barangay should have 2 more flood control programs worth almost half a billion pesos. And this year, there are also items in the GAA for 3 more such projects in Barangay Apitong worth 300 million pesos each, distributed to different contractors. But aside from the implementation being very slow, Governor Bons Dolor also alleged the funding for the projects doubled in GAA from what was in the National Expenditures Program. Recall that their congressman there in the 1st District, Arnan Panaligan, already denied that he had a role in the process and that he had even called out the DPWH on discrepancies in their projects in the province.
Idinidivide nila sa iba't ibang section and portion. Yung in-between, butas, doon pumapasok ang tubig, yung dulo nito binabangga, kaya nawawasak. In-between lagi may ini-insert ito, billions of pesos. And yet, walang maparusahan. Walang umaamin na nagkasala.
From ghost projects to calls for the resignation of the current DPWH chief, the government's flood control projects are now under scrutiny. How did all this come to be? Tonight, we get insights from former DPWH Secretary Rogelio Singson. Secretary Singson served under the Aquino administration. And welcome to the big story, Secretary Singson.
Good evening. Good evening, Ses. Good evening, Pauline.
Secretary, the billion-peso question is, you confess that there have been feelers sent to you. So will you accept or not?
Definitely, there were feelers, but my answer is no, because my priority is my family and their safety.
All right. So that ends the story there. But I do understand that based on your meeting with the president, you are open to joining a third-party group that will conduct a review of flood control projects. Tell us more about this third-party group. Is it an investigating body?
No, we have at MAP, after the president exposed all of these flood control projects, we created in the Management Association of the Philippines a private sector group composed of many volunteers actually who would help address some of these concerns. And says it's a very straightforward, easy to trace. Okay, if I may be allowed to explain it, you give me a few minutes.
Please. We're sad that you are saying no, dousing cold water on this offer. But anyway, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, as you know, the agencies of government, like DPWH, submits to Congress under a signed transmittal of the President what is referred to as National Expenditures Program. Nakalista lahat dyan kung paano gagastusin yung sa DPWH about 800, sabihin mo na 900 billion pesos for 2024 or 2025, sorry. So on that basis, sinubmit sa Congress. After Congress deliberates, the committee, both Senate and the lower house, they will issue what now is referred to as General Appropriations Act or GAA.
Yes.
Okay. So may diferensya lumabas between what was submitted na 900 billion, lumobo ng almost 1.1 trillion yung budget ng DPWH. Right. So ibig sabihin na dagdagan ng 200 billion.
Correct.
Pero hindi lang yun ang masama. Doon pala sa sinubmit na 850 or 900 billion ng DPWH, na-carve out about 250 billion pa. Okay. Pinalitan ng mga projects nang walang kinalaman ang DPWH. So sa madalit sabi, ang insertion coming from both the lower house and the Senate, umabot ng almost 450 billion. Karamihan ito nasa flood control projects. So, nagulat ang DPWH nung implementasyon na. Wala namang kaming project na ganyan. Wala namang kaming binadgetan na ganyan. Biglang nag-i-implement ngayong district offices nang hindi alam ng head office. Kaya nagkagulatan. No? Pati si Presidente nagulat, Secretary Bonoan nagulat. Hindi nila alam. It was all manipulated at the district level.
But, Secretary, the President accepted this budget. Hindi ba yun, isn't that...
Hindi, kaya I understand may binito si Presidente, yung very obvious na paulit-ulit. May nabito. But there was not enough time to look at all of the projects. Kaya ako, ang challenge ko, moratorium muna sa mga flood control projects, reviewin.
Okay. This private sector group won't have any teeth. It's really just like auditing of these projects, recommendatory. So,
tignan lang kung nasaan yan, mga projects na yan na dinagdag, na insert, so that we know exactly what types of projects these are and whether they make sense. Remember what I have always mentioned in the past. Right project ba yan? No? Yung 5 hours of good governance. Is it the right project? Is it the right cost? Is it the right quality? Is it being done right on time and by the right people? Ganun lang ka-straightforward ako noon eh.
I remember, sir, during your time, you were hailed for being able to moderate the congressmen or compromise with them.
Hindi naman as far as...
Okay, paano nyo ginawa? Kasi talagang gusto nilang magkaproyekto naman ng mga distrito nila or gusto rin nilang kumita, alam naman natin yon. Pero,
I understand.
Yeah, how did you do it?
First of all, I had the full support of Speaker Belmonte. Majority Speaker Boyan. Aside from that, I had the full support of the Senate. Right. So sabi ko sa kanila, ito lang yung mga pwedeng projects namin na pwedeng gawin. National roads and bridges. Dahil dumating ako doon, may mga national bridges tayong kahoy pa. No? Dahil opposition daw yung nakaupo doon. Sabi ko, ako, I am colorblind. Wala akong pakialam sa kulay. No? I am not political. So, national road, kahit sino nakaupo dyan, if I have to do it, I'll have to do it. Second, right project, right cost. Ibibid out namin yan. Walang favored contractors akong kakausapin. We will conduct an honest-to-goodness public bidding. And then we have what we refer to as convergence program. No? Yung mga line agencies kasi, DepEd, for example, kami nagtayo ng mga school buildings ni Brother Armin. Pati yung tinatawag nating seaport, airport development. DOTR used to do airports na hindi namin nalalaman, matatapos na lang. Paano yung kali papunta riyan? No? And then tourism, I think this was a very popular program. Lahat nung binigay sa akin ni Secretary Mon Jimenez na 10 priority tourism destinations, we had to put national roads to those places.
So nag-uusap-usap ang mga ahensya ng gobyerno. There was convergence.
Of course. And then sabi ko sa congressman, ito yung mga projects na pwede lang. Mag-usap tayo, isa-isang congressman na gusto makipag-usap, nag-agree kami.
Na ano?
Magsingit kayo dyan ng ibang proyekto outside of this, kahit ilagay nyo dyan, hindi ko pagagawa. Ganun lang.
Sabi nyo, hindi pagagawa.
Hindi ko pagagawa.
Flat out.
Flat out. Farm to market, road to my farm pala ibig sabihin nun.
Secretary, with all these anomalies, irregularities coming to light, yung mga paulit-ulit na proyekto, same funding for different projects, even if they have different specs. What was your reaction to that? Because this is, I would say, very brazen for the contractors to do. Yes, Secretary.
Ang kapal-kapal ng mga muka. Isipin mo yung in-expose ni Senator Ping Lacson, and I'd like to congratulate him for picking up the cudgels, no? Para sa bayan. No? And can you imagine 6 or 7 projects, pare-pareho pa yung amount, iisang contractor with a measly, 250,000 paid up?
Nung pumasok po kayo, Secretary, sa DPWH, because DPWH is notorious for corruption, paano nyo ba linines? Because now it looks like there's a syndicate operating from within and napapaikutan lang si Secretary Bonoan. He doesn't know what's going on down there in the district and regional level.
Well, what happened there, as I said, was the insertions. That's where all these anomalies are coming from.
In cahoots with DPWH.
Let's face it, unang-una, noong panahon ko, ang authority level lang ng district engineer, 50 million pesos. Tinaas yan ng 150 million. So yung 1 billion, china-chap-chap, 97 million, hindi na aakyat yan. Yung
Kaya may 78.
Oo.
Yung binulgar ni Senator Lacson, di ba? Pare-pareho, ibang proyekto sa ibang lugar, pero 78 million lahat ang cost.
That's correct.
So ang director level tinaas din.
Naging 400 million ang regional director.
Nung panahon nyo?
Sa central office, wala nang pumapasok sa central office. Puros foreign assisted projects na lang. Babawasan pa yung right of way, nakaltasan pa. Kaya, wow.
When did this happen? Right after you left, under the watch of Secretary Villar?
Nag-umpisa na yan after I left. Kaya kitang-kita yung pinakitang chart ni Senator Ping. I only spent a total of 182 billion for 6 years. Ngayon, nag-umpisa nung 2021, 250 billion na. Isang taon lang sa flood control.
Right.
I never spent that much.
Could Secretary Bonoan not have seen this nung pumasok siya in 2022?
I suppose so, but I guess he had other concerns in terms of, in fairness, no, talagang pinupukpok niya naman, no. he just got really blinded in these insertions. Walang project studies, walang feasibility studies, di make sense. Eh nakita na, merong ghost, may half ghost pa nga. Half ghost project, ibig sabihin nun, yung dating ginawa, kine-claim na bagong gawa.
May you tell us the circumstances of your meeting with the president?
No, I have not met with the president. The first time I met with the president was early 2024 when he asked me to explain to him. Sabi niya sa akin, segments, alam ko ikaw yung water czar ni President Noynoy. Can you explain to me the program of DPWH related to flood control and water? Sabi ko, Mr. President, ang importante, dalawang bagay. Integrated water resources management. You don't address just the flooding. You also address retarding all of that surface water upstream so that you can use it during dry months and you can treat that for bulk supply. Our country, all over the country, needs sustainable, potable water supply.
Well, Secretary, yes, so if you were to lead this third-party audit or investigation, where would you begin? I mean, can you even follow the paper trail? And I believe one of your suggestions is also to suspend itong mga flood control programs muna?
Tama. If the President, total, inumpisahan niya na may mga nakikita na siyang ghost, it will not address flooding anyway. Eh di suspend at tignan natin yung mga nag-advance na contractors yan kung ano mangyayari.
So, nag-offer na ba ang MAP sa gobyerno? How will this come about? Because right now, the House of Representatives is doing its own investigation, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. You know, it seems like it's going on different directions. What is your recommendation?
I am suggesting paper trail lang nila yung insertions. I think some of the congressmen are already asking, can we look at the deliberations of the BICAM committee or the House and Senate committee on the insertion? Makikita doon doon lang sila mag-focus. Saan ba napunta yung 450 billion worth of insertions?
Secretary, pagdating naman dun sa conflict of interest, because there are some public officials who are related or have families na contractors, and yet they get projects, big-ticket projects, should they be banned as well from joining bids?
Ako, hindi mo na maiwasan yon. Ako lang, ang patakaran ko noon, complete transparency, no favored contractors, mag-bid kayo sa tamang proyekto. In fact, hindi namin tinatago yung agency estimate. Diyan kayo mag-bid.
All right. The VP has pinpointed only two individuals as behind this, the Speaker and Zaldico, who chaired the Appropriations Committee. Ano po ang sa tingin ninyo? Because you mentioned earlier, you had the support of the Speaker and the Senate President in, dealing with the congressmen and the senators and telling them, no, walang project, sorry.
Let's face it, Pauline, hindi naman pwedeng mangyari ang insertions na yan kung hindi pumayag ang leadership of both houses and the Senate.
So how can they conduct an honest-to-goodness investigation that you're saying, looking back, when the leadership is the one that, fingers are pointing to them?
Kaya nga ang appeal ko, and which is the same appeal of the President, time out muna, mahiya naman tayo. Time out muna. No? Let's look at these projects, and if it is not the right project, can we put it in the right project? Can we bid it out properly? Hinto na muna.
Okay.
Ang dami nyo ng kotse.
Oh, finally, is Secretary Bonoan still the person to lead the agency?
Well, the President he has still the confidence of the President. So it's importante dyan. The president has to be 100%, 110% behind whoever is going to be the DPWH, whether it's Secretary Manon or somebody else.
All right. Well, we thank you very much for your time, former DPWH Secretary Rogelio Singson.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, will detained preacher Apollo Quiboloy be flown to the United States, where he also faces a string of charges? The Foreign Affairs and Justice Departments answer when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching the big story here on One News. Kingdom of Jesus Christ founder Apollo Quiboloy's extradition might not happen just yet. Both the Justice and Foreign Affairs departments are yet to receive advice or confirmation about the U.S. government's request to extradite Quiboloy, who's wanted for labor trafficking and establishing bogus charities in their country. But even so, DOJ spokesperson Miko Clavano said, quote, "In general, a person cannot be extradited from the Philippines while a criminal case against him is still pending in our courts since local jurisdiction takes priority. The rule is that he must first face trial and, if convicted, serve his sentence here before extradition may proceed."
Clavano also clarifies that, quote, "Courts retain the power to act on cases with urgency, so if circumstances warrant, they may move to resolve proceedings in order not to unduly delay a valid extradition request." Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Babe Romualdez, first broke the news that, quote, "The U.S. Embassy is sending extradition documents copies direct to Secretary Remulla's private address." Romualdez added, quote, "The DOJ has to decide if they agree or not. Then the U.S. will send a note, verbale, to the DFA." For their part, Quiboloy's camp said they also await the extradition request, but for now, they insist his cases on Philippine courts should be prioritized.
We are requesting that the Philippine government would take the high ground. The requested state really has the option, if the extradition request is granted, whether to surrender him or not, regardless as to whether or not the cases are pending or has already been decided against him.
42 years since former Senator Ninoy Aquino was gunned down during the term of his father and namesake, President Bongbong Marcos called for peace and unity today. In a statement on Ninoy Aquino Day, Marcos reflected that the passage of time has allowed the country to approach this event with greater clarity and therefore with a deeper perspective, adding that he has come to understand that history should be seen less as a final judgment and more as an instruction that sharpens how leaders serve, listen, and bear responsibility. Marcos also noted that the Philippines has undergone a profound transformation defined by broader public discourse on power, memory, and citizenship. The chief executive ended his message saying commemorations such as Ninoy Aquino Day serve as reminders to choose peace over quarrel and uphold dignity despite differences, and urged the public to mark the occasion with solemn and meaningful remembrance.
And now we speak with late Senator Ninoy Aquino's grandson, Kiko Aquino D. Welcome to the program, Kiko.
Hi, Mrs. Pauline. Good evening po. Thank you for having me today, and good evening then po for all of our viewers tonight.
We'd like to get your reaction on the message of the president. It seemed quite statesmanlike.
It's interesting that you say that, po. I actually felt this was a more combative statement that we heard from President Marcos compared to the past. No, kasi what I took from what he was saying was that he was implying that we know a little better now about history compared to where we were maybe 10 years ago when historical misinformation was not that bad. He made a call for unity, and I think that call is, really, it's been cheapened by a lot right now by recent events. No, we saw what unity looks like when it's not rooted on solid principles. No, unity falls apart very, very quickly when it's not based on anything solid, right? And he said something about respecting dignity, and I don't know how you can respect human dignity when at the same time you don't condemn the real, genuine violations of human dignity that happened during the time of his father. So I don't know. In the end, I guess people read things differently, but that's my take on that, I guess.
You're saying it's empty. It's rhetoric.
I think not only is it empty, I think past statements have been empty, but I think he's trying to push his narrative that, we know better now, that the distortion has somehow improved our understanding of history. And that's not something I'm not going to take quietly.
I will have to reread that statement
Yeah,
again.
I am rereading the statement actually, Kiko, and I guess some of the words that would back up your sentiment is this, that the Philippines has undergone a profound transformation defined by broader public discourse on power, memory, and citizenship. Is that what you were pertaining to?
Right, broader public memory, and I think the idea that history is the idea that history is not final, which I would agree, history is not final. But I also believe that we're in a struggle right now for what exactly was the period of 1970 to 1986. You know, was that a golden era, as the president claimed very frequently during his campaign? Or was that a time when human dignity was trampled on, the darkest time in our history? And as bad as the Duterte years were, the Duterte years that Marcos ran as a continuity candidate of, I might remind people, as bad as those years were, I still think the darkest time were that time of martial law. So, yun, I guess, I guess, if I'm maybe reading too much into it, I guess what I'll say in my defense
You might
is,
be.
I think,
You
I
might be.
I might be. But what I'll say in my defense is that I think we've taken lightly the attempts to revise to distort our history in the past, and I'm very cautious not to do that again.
All right. We'd like to know also, how did the family commemorate today?
Right. We had the regular commemoration at the Manila Memorial Park. We had a mass at 10 a.m. And yeah, we're grateful that a lot of people attended, and I think beyond that, we're also grateful for the other commemorations that were organized. We had the National Historical Commission. They did also the regular tribute to Lolo Ninoy at Terminal 1 of NAIA. We also had them. I also caught wind of tributes in places like Baguio, in Tagaytay. So we're all very thankful for these efforts that to keep the memory of Lolo Ninoy alive.
And also, of course, on social media.
Yes, definitely. I was just part of a sort of Rappler a text session. So I was in a chat room talking to people about, it's a very new way to commemorate, but I'm really grateful for that effort.
But Kiko, today's a holiday. Last year it wasn't. It was moved, and there were some protests over that. So don't you think it's kind of, the president has taken a step back?
Well, I think perhaps he's taken a step back, but I think, having to address all of the corruption issues in the budget that he signed last year takes a lot of time. So if he doesn't have time for historical distortion, then, well, that's understandable.
Well, Kiko, the tragic death of Ninoy Aquino, as we all know, sparked the movement which led to the People Power Revolution. And I'm sure your family gets asked this a lot, but what do you think Ninoy Aquino would say about the state of democracy right now in the Philippines?
Well, I think he would have always believed that democracy is a work in progress. We've seen, I think in the time since his death, I think he would say we've seen advances. We've also seen degradation of our democracy. And my hope is that we kick out of the sort of rut we have right now. I'm excited, honestly, by the idea that in 1986, the Philippines was, despite coming out of a brutal dictatorship, was the country that figured out how democracy worked towards the end of the 20th century. And a lot of other countries followed our lead in Eastern Europe. We saw a lot of democratic revolutions following the lead of the Philippines. And now I think in the social media age, we're seeing democracy again be challenged all around the world, not just in the Philippines. And I think the Philippines is recognized as like one of the, if not the social media capital of the world. So wouldn't it be interesting if we're the ones that figure out democracy in this new age of our history also? So I think Lolo Ninoy, I think he'd say that we're a far away from that, but I think he'd also have the hope that we can figure it out.
Well, speaking of social media, we are in the digital age. Kiko, do you believe that the youth, do they fully understand the sacrifice, the significance of the death of Ninoy Aquino? Or do you think it's been quite lost?
Is he relevant to the youth? Do they know him? Do they know what he did?
I think, honestly, I think people know the airport more than anything. There's a study that we did a little while back. We had a hard time figuring out what people really felt about Ninoy because the responses on NAIA were the ones that are a bit more common. No? But I think the challenge is I don't think any person is entitled to be remembered, right? And I think the challenge for those of us who are really inspired by the example of Lolo Ninoy, and there are a lot of great people who are inspired by him. I see Attorney Luke Espiritu was in the mass earlier, and I think this might have been the first time that he attended that mass. But I've come to learn that he was someone who, despite coming from a different political tradition from me, was someone who drew a lot of inspiration from Lolo Ninoy. On the other hand, you have another person from a different political tradition. See Chief Justice May Lucereno also speaks very highly of Lolo Ninoy, and though we might disagree about certain things, I think the fact that so many people today draw inspiration from it, I think that's what makes it relevant. That while maybe people relate less to the specific struggles that Ninoy had, there are people who are active parts of our country now, of our nation now, that people my age and younger draw inspiration from. And through through a degree of separation, maybe they're getting it from Ninoy as well. So that I think gives me hope and a lot of comfort.
It is your grandparents that are inspiring you to pursue this track in your life.
In a way, no. Maybe not directly, because I think Lola Cory wanted for all of us to have quieter, more private lives, I think. But I guess in a way also, what I realized in 2022 when President Marcos won his election is that we really need to fight for the memory of these people that I love, or I really need to fight for the memory of these people that I love. And I'm grateful to have an opportunity to do that. And I'm grateful also that that also allows me to speak not just about them, but on things that are happening today that I think were they still here, they'd also be speaking out about.
Thank you for talking to us. That was Kiko Aquino D. And in other news, the Securities and Exchange Commission has fined Villar Land Holdings Corporation for its failure to file financial statements on time and for potentially misleading disclosures. In an August 18 order, the SEC slapped the company and its directors with an administrative fine of 1 million pesos each, or an aggregate penalty of 12 million pesos with additional 2,000 pesos in daily until they filed the reports. They were likewise served with a 10-day show cause order to explain why the firm's license should not be suspended. Villar Land Holdings has confirmed receipt of the SEC order. It earlier pointed to changing requests from an external auditor as a cause of delay in the submission of financial reports. Among the directors listed are former Senate President Manny Villar and his children, Senators Mark and Camille Villar. Villar Land is also facing a separate SEC probe for alleged insider trading over its 1 trillion peso valuation.
All right, we're going to be pausing for another breather, but after that, what does it take to become a green builder amid rising costs of construction and architecture? The Philippine Green Building Council has several ideas. Sustainability is next. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back to the big story. As cities grow and the demand for building rises, the environment sometimes pays the price. From energy consumption to waste generation, construction of buildings contribute heavily to carbon emissions, about 40% of the world's carbon emissions. But some organizations are changing that narrative. The Philippine Green Building Council, or PhilGBC, is driving sustainable practices in the property sector, helping projects and developers embrace green building standards that are good for the planet and for the people. We continue to feature companies and organizations that champion sustainable initiatives. Welcome to Sustainability. Every building tells a story, and for PhilGBC, it's one of responsibility, innovation, and impact. And to talk more about this, we're joined by the CEO of PhilGBC, Christopher De La Cruz. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Ces, for inviting us to share some of our ideas for the built environment.
Yeah. So the Philippine Green Building Council is the one responsible for certifying buildings as Verde certified.
Yes.
Tell us more about this certification process, and ilan bang buildings dito sa Manila or sa
In the
metropolis?
Philippines, yes.
Oh, sa Philippines.
Yes.
Are certified as green.
Okay, a quick background on the certification process. The name of the system is Verde, Building for Ecologically Responsive Design Excellence. Most people are wondering, why do we have to develop Verde here in the Philippines? As we all know, here in the Philippines, in the absence of anything local, we use American. When I studied architecture, we study US standards, and that always has been the norm. When we started, the LEED rating system is starting to permeate industry, and it's being used. And we established the council in 2007, and one of the major areas of discussion was whether or not we should develop our own standards for use in the Philippines.
LEED is the US standard.
Yes, LEED is the US standard.
LEED.
Yes.
You see that, no? In
Yes,
buildings.
you also see that in the Philippines. It's also developed by a Green Building Council, the US Green Building Council, and Verde is developed by the PhilGBC. What most people don't realize was, as early as 2002, through support of USAID, we had a study tour. We went to Chicago at the time, and we studied the possibility of adopting these practices here in the Philippines. We assembled stakeholders in the space, and we decided to develop our own scheme. That is the most interesting part. We realized that there's a lot of local practices that has to come into play, and we have to respect our own regulations. This led to us developing our own scheme and doing our own certification process.
Which is just as good, or if not better.
Well, it's not an issue.
What's the difference?
Yes, that's the key word. It's not an issue of which is better, but we have to recognize that they are different for a reason. We develop our own scheme because we have regulations that is quite unique for the Philippines.
Yeah, what are some of those
For
differences?
example, when it comes to the local governments, we have special regulations developed by local government. Meron tayong local government code. They have the power to create regulations specific to their jurisdictions.
It can differ from one place to
If
another.
we have our own, we can actually tailor fit the standard to fit local jurisdictions. We did that in Cebu as early as 10 years ago. It was adopted in Mandaue City.
I think they're
Yes, and in
stricter.
Pasig.
They're more
Yes.
stringent. They want to build a reputation as a green city, no?
Yes. And this is actually advantageous to cities. We actually invite foreign investors to our country, and when we want this to happen, we have to keep in mind, global companies, when they go to your country, they bring with them their environmental mandates. And these
So
things
they
that-
will only locate where,
Yes.
in a place that is
actually supports
sustainable.
their ideals.
Right.
So with our own system in place, aligned with global ideals, but the execution, of course, is local, this actually supports foreign investment. So we get to see areas in the Philippines where there is increased investments. Nice story.
Ilan na ba ang Verde certified?
Well, right this very moment, we're working on 97, 98 buildings. It's not much, I have to admit, but I think the
Since
seeds...
2007?
Yes, the seeds are planted, and hopefully we get to see more. But what I am most inspired with is when we start seeing the small and medium-sized enterprises
Wanting
also getting certified. Before kasi it's a big company thing, but seeing government also getting certified, seeing small and medium.
Government.
Yes, small
Like,
and
who's the first?
the first was LLDA. We saw Central Bank, the Senate of the Philippines.
Really?
We have registrations
which
from
one? Not
The
the new
new?
building.
the new building.
The new building?
The new building.
Is Verde certified?
For design pa lang. It's not yet done, but we're still awaiting completion of the building so we can also certify the build. But of course, we get to see the right things being put in place, and hopefully we get to see them follow through. And they actually have a higher rating. It's 4 stars, and they're shooting for 5 stars.
Okay,
for
tell us
the
about
build.
this net zero energy. How are we achieving that?
Okay, 2 things. When we build our buildings, whenever we use electricity, and also there's the electricity and the energy and water nexus, we actually emit a lot of carbon. And also, what we mostly not think about is materials before it reaches our job site. When it's manufactured, they're also emitting carbon. So we're talking of embodied carbon and operating carbon. In the past few years, we've been focused largely on looking at certifying net zero operational carbon. In the coming months, we
So
are...
operational pa lang,
Operational
not
pa
yet
lang,
materials.
yes. Because the challenge is we need to create our database for embodied carbon of the different materials. While there are information used globally, yung transportation still not taken into consideration. We need to build a lot more know-how. But we had to start somewhere. Before, the thinking was, we can't do it because we don't have data. So the question was, so what is the data that we have? And we start from there.
Net Lima is net zero.
Oh, yes.
All the NEO buildings.
All the NEO buildings,
in
all 7
BGC
buildings. The
are
whole-
Really?
are
Yes,
certified
yes.
by EDGE of
And-
the IFC
Yes.
as net
Net
zero.
zero.
Yes.
Even the power, kasi it's from geothermal. It's from Aboitiz Energy geothermal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So if you charge your electric car there, it's you're using talagang zero carbon emission kasi yung electricity galing.
nila is actually green
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
And what most people don't realize is,
Yes.
even before the standardization for charging stations, we don't have registered EVs yet. The buildings of NEO already has charging stations.
Yeah,
They were
actually.
first movers.
Yeah,
yan,
pero
first movers.
they had and no one was parking there.
Yes,
They were ahead of their
yes,
time.
but it stimulates conversation at the time. The question was, why are we doing this? We don't have electric vehicles. But because it's a chicken and egg problem, no?
Pero
People would
ngayon,
say, yes,
ang hirap
Ngayon,
na
oo,
mag-charge.
charge doon, punuan.
and they have a charging station. That's the beauty of it. So before, who's charging? Now, where do we charge?
Yeah.
And at least we now show people na, oh, this is how we do it in green buildings.
Chris,
Yes.
ang common perception is mahal magpa-certify. Mahal nga ba? I mean, if you're a developer, you're a building
Yeah.
owner.
That's an interesting observation. Also, interesting chismis, if I may use the term. Typically, a build now, cheapest I've heard, 45,000 per square meter, and it goes up. Sometimes we hear 150,000 per square
Hindi
meter.
totoo yun.
That's the build. You know how much we charge for certification? 60 pesos per square meter. It can be as low as that. If we're charging 79.85 pesos per square meter, mahal na yon. There are special circumstances already. So you
Pero
tell
kung
me,
times mo yun.
kung mahal ba yun? I don't think that's
60,
mahal.
Pero
yes.
sa
Yes.
times mo ng ilang square meters.
Yes.
kung-
It's a building. Oh, yeah.
Oo.
Well, if you look at...
But what's the reward? Sige na nga.
Okay.
What's the reward of being
Verde
Verde certified? And also, sorry, in answering na rin
Yes,
that question,
yes.
kasi alam mo, we're running, we want to fill up the time as much
Okay.
as we can.
All right.
Ayan, nalimutan ko tuloy. Can old buildings still, yung hindi mo pa tinatay, ay yung natayo na, can
Yes.
they still be Verde
Okay,
certified?
I'll try to
Sige.
go through this in one go. No? NEO has old buildings and new buildings. We're in the oldest building. It's actually the first building in Fort Bonifacio. It's certified under net zero, under the Verde rating system, and under our health and well-being system. It can be certified. No? It's it's a thing. No? If the management is willing, it can be done.
Okay.
Now, in terms of is it difficult, is it expensive, and what are the benefits? Tell you what, sometimes we go out with friends, we meet them for a cup of coffee. We go to a 3-star place, the coffee's nice. We go to a 5-star place, the coffee's still nice, and we're wondering, coffee is good in both places, but one is 5-star, one is 3-star. We're paying for the uniform of the waiter, the Murano chandelier, the carpet. We're paying for luxury. Now, imagine a world where you get to put a rating on sustainability. You enter a building, it's a 5-star green building. What's the reward? People support it if they're like-minded. No? If you ask people who had certified their projects under us, they can easily tell you they want to locate in our projects.
Mas maraming tenants.
Yes, because we are a green building. You already mentioned, Neo, I'm not sure with the numbers, no, but from what I heard, industry occupancy rates, vacancy around 20% on average. Their vacancy is
0.
no, 2%.
Okay.
That's a typical
Meaning
movement
it's
lang, no?
something that
That's what I heard. No?
it's
Yeah.
it's like a magnet for.
Yes, it's a magnet. Of course, it's unfair to attribute it simply all to certification, but you know, it adds to your recipe of of success, no, in managing your portfolio.
Also, syempre baka if you're an old building, baka hindi ka pumasa. Paano ba 'yon?
Well,
kasi madami kang kailangan baguhin, etc., etc.
Okay,
Is it
Yeah.
worth all the trouble, diba?
let me tell you of a typical Filipino who inherited the property from their lolo. No? They had this 100-year-old home. They're going to put improvements. They're going to make it fit their modern living. Or they may have left it alone, pero may complain sila. I wish I did this, I wish I did that. It's the same with buildings. No? If the intention is to really be sustainable, there are ways. If the intention is to get it verified, we're there to support you. People are saying, do we really need to get certified? If you ask me, it's your own home, you made it sustainable, you don't need to prove it to anybody, you're just happy, you have a sustainable home with healthy air, so on and so forth. But when you're in business, you need the referee. No? You need somebody telling
To say. You can't just
telling
claim
people
it.
who's going to lease your space. Oh, we had the third party to tell you that this is a green building, and that's a critical role that I think we play, and I think that contributes to the betterment of business practices here in the country.
And in your council, it's multidisciplinary, no? You have architects, iba-iba, they come from different fields.
It's an industry association. We are almost 400 companies strong. We have members who are developers, we have banks, we have power companies, we have architects, engineers, developers. Those who have interests in the property sector and who are like-minded, who wanted to promote sustainability in this space. They work together, they help create the standards, they share information among one another to propel business forward towards sustainability.
Chris, if you were to make sustainability more understandable, it can be very abstract concept. Paano mo ipapaliwanag?
My story never changed in the past 20 years. I told them when I was starting out, how do I explain this to a 5-year-old? So I asked, my daughter was 4 years old, 5 years old at the time, and I asked her, where do you think chickens come from the supermarket? That's what she said. And then it made me wonder, one day kids will not have the privilege of falling down from a tree. And that is a story that we need to share to industry. There are things about the environment which we take for granted, but at some point, we have to realize that this is a legacy that we have to pass on. Regardless of business that we're in, we may be in manufacturing, construction, there are ways for us to promote sustainability in the work that we do. Years ago, we did the study on shifting blue-collar work to green-collar work. So we trained architects to become green architects, engineers to be green engineers. We even had a campaign before on how to support masons to lessen the pollution that they create while they do their work. We did this in tests that...
Naiintindihan ng masons.
In the beginning, it's quite challenging. In the beginning, they would see it's extra work. But at some point, sometimes when it's supported by management, it gets echoed in the workforce. Kasi there's also a business angle to it. It works, no? You have to keep trying.
I like that example. I laughed. Chickens are not from the supermarket. You have to go to a farm. Baka kung hindi tayo mag-iingat, wala nang mga farms.
Wala na. If you ask them, where do you think mangoes came from? No, they would say, oh, Cebu, it comes in little packets.
Dried.
Dried mango.
Dried mangoes. So it may sound amusing, but at some point makes you wonder.
Sad, yeah.
It's sad, no? If you look at, this is what we're looking at, if we are not going to protect the environment and create ways on how to share this know-how to society at large. This is our contribution for industry, and hopefully it gets to cascade to the rest of society.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
You know, we have a joke here. We're already over time, and the next show will endlessly rib us about it. So thank you so much for your time and for talking to us here on sustainability and on The Big Story.
Thank you, Cez. Thank you, Pauline.
That was Christopher de la Cruz of the Philippine Green Building Council.
All right, and that's all the time that we have for tonight. Thank you so much for watching The Big Story. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We'll be back here tomorrow at 7:30. Thank you for watching. I saw that you were rushing. Have a good night,
Nag-rap
everyone.
na ako dito eh. Coming up next is Play-by-Play
Can you
with Cheska
feel the-
Calaw and Andre Felix.
I can feel the eyes searing the
Piercing.
back of my head.
Anong nangyayari dyan? Bakit
Bawi pwedeng huminga.
Anong nangyayari sa inyong dalawa? Alam niyo, nakakatawa. Parang kayo magkapatid. Alam mo, magkapatid sinabi ko, ha? Parang magkapatid na, uy, hili ka na, bilis na. Tapos, relax. 8:32 pa lang naman. But sir, thank you so much. A great show as always, sustainability. Oh yeah, may gusto pa sabihin si ate. Ate Cez, ano gusto sabihin?
Hindi, yung dinikdik mo yung oras.
Hindi, okay lang naman. Oh.
33
May gusto
na.
pa kayo sabihin?
How can we make it up to you?
Wala naman. Ano?
Pansit or something.
Okay. Sige.
Masarap yung pansit sa stories ni... Hindi ko nakalimutan yung pansit discussion eh.
Napadalaan mo ba?
Maghanap ako eh. Isabella ng tama. Meron ako alam.
Okay.
Ayan.
Thank you once again. Great show. As always, what a duo. Parang magkapatid nga lang, di ba? Na, uy, ka na, bilis na. Nagmamadali. Cez and to Pauline, The Big Story. On our show on Play-by-Play, we've got World Boxing announcing a new policy check.